good evening. And since it was only 3 words, the other part of that is, I just hope that I can be a blessing to you this evening, and that you take something with you that's going to make a big difference in how you're approaching this next phase of your work. So, the Perennial Workforce was something that came to me as my sister retired. So my sister retired from the utility company after, I think, almost 30 years of service. And she retired in 2016. And what was really cool about her retirement was that she had set herself up such that she doesn't have to work anymore. But she wants to. And at one point, she starts working at, what's the name? It's a clothing chain. But anyway, $10 an hour. Now, this is a woman who was a professional. She was, high-paid executive, all that, but she's just looking for something to do. Mm-hmm. And so it struck me that there are a lot of people who either after retirement or forced time out, they're looking for something to do after the age of 50 or so. And a lot of times we have a fear of what's, not possible. And so that fear is around, well, am I competitive with the young people that are in the job market? Are my skills up to par? So there's a lot of questions that we have that starts to feed the fear. So what the book is about is first identifying what it is you really want to do. Because I've also found that a lot of people just take a job, like my sister. That was not something she really wanted to do. It was just something that was available. So first thing is people kind of tend to jump into anything because if you've been out here for a while, you might start to feel a little bit anxious. And so when something comes along, you grab that. So part of what I wanted to do in the book was to help people think through the process of what's next for me. And does it necessarily mean that I do the same thing I've done for 30 years? Or is this really an opportunity to do something that I'm passionate about and something that I like? The second part of it is really to think through how do I find this next great opportunity. And there are a couple of things that we'll talk about. I have a little worksheet that we'll work through as well. But so it's in exploring. So in exploring this first question of, is it too light? Do we need to turn the lights down?
Right.
Yeah. So in exploring this first question, I want to just kind of poll the audience to see how many of you have actually decided what it is that you want to do, or are you making an assumption that what you need to do is what you've already done or always done? So how many of you have decided? If you could give me some ideas of, Michelle.
For a number of years I worked for a government contractor. And while I did that, I had to conduct conference calls and do podcasts and things like that. Once I was laid off, I decided that I would use my severance to buy equipment and consulting as a voiceover talent. And as I have read For the Blind for about 10 years, it sort of, I fell into it. So that's my passion, and that's what I want to do.
That's excellent. And so how far along are you in pursuing that?
Actually, too far to turn back, but stuck in a position for the moment because I had to get something for the money. So it's still on the back burner, but not forgotten.
Okay. All right.
I've done a couple of gigs too. But.
So have you thought about reading sorry, a little warm for me. But have you thought about reading books?
Right.
Like the audio books?
I haven't. And it's just a matter of pushing myself.
Mm-hmm.
because actually I had been passionate and motivated and zealous and all kinds of stuff until I started working. And even working 4 days a week is just a bit much with a long commute and everything, so I sort of slid off the plate.
Okay.
And it's something that can be done, but it's going to take some time. And I have all the equipment, I have everything I need. It's just that I need to get the motivation.
Okay, well, hopefully by the end of the workshop, you'll have that motivation and plan. Because one of the things I always say is it only takes an hour a week or an hour a day. So if you can devote an hour a day to anything, the thing is at the end of the week, you take 7 hours closer to what it is you want to do. And we'll work around some strategy about that. Any others? Have you decided what it is you want to do? Okay, all right.
I was gonna say similar to her, it was the way you phrased it, and it is that I am inclined to do something similar to what I feel like I just came out of, only because I see that as something that will allow me to get back to work faster. But what I am trying to do, it's just a little bit different, is to consciously find a bigger firm that I feel is known to have more integrity. And so I'm not going right back to, because I came out of small business, like something as small as I came out of.
Okay, so kind of a different type of firm, but similar work.
Exactly.
So how many of you are in this search and you feel joyful about it?
There are moments.
Okay, so that's the first thing we have to do, is change the energy around what you're doing, right? Because the universe picks up on feelings first, right? And if you're feeling like this is drudgery or it's something I don't want to do or whatever it is, the universe picks up on that. So if nothing else, we're going to change the energy about it, because the thing about not having a job right now, and it's not even a job, let's just call it an opportunity to make money, because in some cases we're not going to be looking for a job, right? You're going to perhaps look for a gig or something that's different than what you're currently doing. But once you change the energy about how you're looking, then the universe is going to start sending you joyful opportunities. So, kind of consider that. All right, anybody else that has already decided?
Well, I'll give it an example. I've more or less decided what I'd like to do, but it's sometimes, and it's what a lot of people here face, is it's the age thing. So I've done communications and public relations for elected officials, for organizations, and stuff like that, fairly big organizations. I hit a point where my last organization where I think they really wanted basically some kind of newer energy. So I decided I'd like to do next work for some smaller, probably nonprofit group, do a little more in terms of social justice or different good government type things. But what I've encountered, most of the people who are hiring or involved in it are probably at least 30 years younger than I am. So there's kind of like, I don't know, there's not really, I don't feel like I'm experiencing outright age discrimination, but I also feel like, it's like when it comes to abilities and talent and willingness to work for some of these organizations at a lower rate of pay, I'm a good match. But I'm not necessarily a good match because they don't feel like they can hang out with me in certain ways.
Okay.
I'm sure, say, working with their grandpa or their dad or whatever. So in other words, it's like, yeah, I find it interesting. I kind of know what I want to do, but it's there are bumps in the road.
So maybe, and I think that, it's not usually outright discrimination, but it's definitely an unconscious bias.
Yeah.
They know it's something, but can't put the finger on it, But one of the things about your experience is you don't have to be in an office to do what you do. I've hired tons of people online with your experience. And so the other thing that is a big word for me is, well, 3, in the meantime. So in the meantime, while you're looking for work, what are you doing, right? And so my business is almost 18 years old, and it was an in the meantime activity. And so while I was looking for work, I had just a quick little snippet about me. In 2001, I took a buyout from my company because I was totally bored and decided that I could not live in Detroit one more winter. And so I took a buyout and sold my condo, packed up my boxes, living with my sister until September 22nd, which was the day I was moving, but it was 2001, so 9 days after 9/11. And I, of course, at that point, yeah, exactly, everyone's like, are you still moving to DC? No job, But the whole point, though, was once I got here, I started putting out resumes, and I knew that it was going to take 12 to 18 months. That's what professionals were saying back in 2001, in order to get the kind of position that I wanted. My concern was, what's the gap going to say? So I started a business, Marva, Goldsmith and Associates, right? And while I was there, I went through a, what do you call those programs, with right management.
Outplacement service.
Outplacement, there you go. Again, I knew you'd know. So I went to right management, and they had an entrepreneurs class. And when I took the buyout, I said I was going to do something that I really love. So I love this job. And I decided I was going to take an image class in Atlanta. In New York. And so I got the buyout, went to New York, did the image class. And then when I went back home for the entrepreneurs class, they wanted us to give like a half-hour presentation. And so I presented materials about, how image affects the hiring process. And so when I moved to DC with no job, no car, no apartment, just a open vision. Yeah, a little crazy. Right management was my first client. And so, because what I did was I took after you see, okay, this is what happens when you're turning 60, you can't remember anything, but the evaluations.
Okay.
Sounds like. Okay. So I took the evaluations, and that's what I used as kind of collateral. So I asked them to make a call for me, and I took the evaluations as kind of like a package. And so as a result of the evaluations from this little class that I did, they said, well, why don't you come up and do a couple of classes for us? So that's how I started working, and it was really no money. Like, seriously, I think it was $25 for me to ride, forever to get there. But the point was, I was engaged in the work that I love to do. And so on my resume, I had, consultant or something like that. And so I started talking to friends and telling them what I wanted to do. So I'd always tell them image brand management consultant. Friend from Detroit Edison, which is where I spent 20 years, he said, so Marva, what are you doing these days? And I told him I'm an image consultant, claim what it is that you are, right? And so he goes, well, that's really cool. I'm on this board of women's welfare to work. Put me down for $10,000. I'm like, 10,000 what? It's like $10,000. So that was like my first contract. So now I had to create the workshop for the $10,000, right? My point is that, in the meantime is an amazing thing, because what it does is it puts you out there. You start doing the work that you really want to do. And after 6 months, I had enough money not to have to worry about looking for a job. I kept looking, but the frequency in which I was putting out resumes became less and less, and I started building this business. So, the whole decide thing is critical, because you have to tell the universe what it is you want to do, and then you have to stand on that. And everything that, even if you have to work to do something else so that you can pay the bills and all that. I understand the practical component of it, because I had a buyout at the time, so I had some money, some cushion. But if you're not doing every day, you're not doing a little bit of something to edge your way towards what it is that you really want to do, you'll find that a year from now, 2 years from now, you're still like a Chico's, which is what my sister was doing for a minute. Doing something that she really didn't want to do, but it was just something to, you know, to help time pass away. So the next thing that we wanted to talk about, so after you decided, one of the things that I've also found is that people don't know what their special sauce is. Does everybody know what I mean by special sauce? Yeah, so it's your unique value proposition. And back in 1999, you know, everybody's talking about personal branding now. And basically, it was a phrase that was coined by Tom Peters that essentially said, we're all like a brand. We're just like, we are meant to be sold. But the marketplace that we're selling ourselves on is the career and job marketplace. The question is, how do you distinguish yourself from everybody else who does the same thing? How would somebody pick you out of a line of the same, like if you were soap, you know, and this is Tide or whatever, but how do people pick you out from the crowd? And so the unique value proposition is simply understanding what your special skills are, your interests, your hobbies, things of that nature. But as well, you combine that interest with what sets you apart from everyone else. So I'm going to give you an example, and then we're going to do this exercise. So this is my sister. It's kind of not showing up right on the screen. But what that says is basically her skill set. She's a process improvement professional. So she's done quality work and things of that nature. And she also does organizational effectiveness. But her special sauce is that she's an energetic conversationalist. So if Marsha was in the room, she's very high energy. And so what that basically meant for her is that when she does gig work, she should look for facilitator positions. Because one thing, she keeps track of meetings because of her process improvement skills and organizational skills. She keeps the conversation going, and it's always high energy. She's results driven. So if she went to an interview, she would talk about this stuff. She would talk about the special sauce. The stuff over here is what's on your resume. That's what gets you the interview. So there's lots and lots of process improvement consultants. There's lots and lots of people with great organizational skills. But there's not a lot of people with the special sauce. And so if someone's looking for that, that's who they're going to hire. Someone who can hold a room, do the energetic conversation with, but also have those skill sets. So let's take like 5 minutes. And on your sheet, there is 3 columns. I think, this is when you get the sheet. All right. The first thing you're going to think about is my talents. This could be your talents, your skills, the things that you do really, really well, the things that people compliment you about all the time. If you think back to performance reviews, they might have been the things that you excelled at. So what are your talents? Okay, that's skills and abilities. And then, what's the special sauce? What is it that separates you from other people? Now, the other thing that I'm going to ask you to do, even if you're not thinking about starting a business, how could you use your talents and that special sauce to start a business? What would that business be? What would it look like? So take 5 minutes, talents, special sauce, and if you were to start a business, in the meantime, what would that business be? And kind of think outside the box. You know, of course you're going to have something about what you've been doing for the last 20 years, but also think about some of your hobbies. What is it that you do that you could just spend endless hours doing? you know, for me it was shopping, so I turned that into image consulting. It was a blast. You'd go shopping with someone else's credit cards. How much better can that get? But, you know, as I've gotten older, it's not as much fun. So, yeah, how would you turn this talent and this special sauce into a business? So let's take 5 minutes. Sharing. Would anybody like to share their talents, their special sauce, and what kind of business might you develop? Yes.
I'm not sure if I understand talents and special sauce. I'm not sure. I'm going to bypass the first talent and just say my secret sauce is patience, caring, helping older people. But I also say caring for animals. And the business that I see would be a dog walking business.
Okay, I mean, that's very popular here in DC. And also there's a website called care.com.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're familiar with that?
Yeah, I signed it, but I never followed through with it.
Okay. All right, so think about, following through on that. Because what's interesting is there's so many different ways to have in the meantime activity online and connect with your audience online or your target that's already set up for you, so you don't even have to do anything. So you can connect with that.
Now, what I really, you say what you enjoyed, I really enjoyed traveling, and I'm looking for a training job that entails a lot of travel. I don't care, it's like 90% travel. That's what I would like to do, because that would be a real job and pay me some money.
Yeah, look at cruise ships. You know, places that that travel. I mean, where could you? There's a place too. I'll have to look. There's an online training organization that travels, that does a lot of different kinds of travel. But I guess it also depends on what kind of training you would do.
I could do technical training, soft skills kind of stuff, contracts, any kind of like. Ideally, it would be a project for maybe USAID because they have opportunities in developing countries, or Department of State or something like that.
Well, I was going to talk about that a little later, but I might as well talk about it now. So there's 3 ways to do an in the meantime activity. One is to have your own business. The second is to contract with a government, contractor, which is basically what's happening a lot here. And then the third is to find a small business and offer your expertise. So it's kind of like help them grow their business. So with respect to that second one, working for USAID, have you done any research on FedBiz Ops?
You mean a federal job?
Yeah.
No, I really haven't, because everybody said age doesn't matter. It's your experience that matters. I think that FedBiz Ops. No, FedBiz Ops?
USA
That's different.
Jobs.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about USA Jobs. No, I haven't really looked at FedBiz Ops.
So I always suggest look at FedBiz Ops, and now I think it's just fdo.gov, and look to see if you go to awards,
Yeah.
who's just gotten new contracts. Because most of the people that have gotten new contracts do not have the employees to support the contract.
Yeah.
You know, I know firsthand, and I'll tell you, I'm going totally off script here, but so I have a contract, received a contract last year for the Small Business Administration Office of Disaster Assistance. And they're the ones that go out and help restore homes and businesses after a disaster. So our contract was to do the after action report for Hurricanes Harvey, Irma, and Maria. Now, I'm telling you this story because I want you to understand how I found the people that are working for me, okay? So the first 2 people I hired was one, my sister, the facilitator with the energetic conversational, because she would be perfect over the phone to do work with teams. But then I went to LinkedIn and I put in a request for process improvement consultants, and that was basically it, because I had to hire 2 process improvement consultants. So one contacts me right away, and actually I think we got about 5 people that we interviewed off of LinkedIn. Come to find out, the guy that had his exquisite skills went to my church. So that was, pretty synchronistic. But so I go to LinkedIn and I'm always looking for people to support a contract that I just received because I have not staffed up. So the other person that we offered a job, and these are, $80, $90 an hour jobs, they accepted the position, but we think that they used our offer to get more money at their current position. So we didn't have anybody. And in 2 weeks, we had to put that person on the job. So I still didn't have anyone. So I'm driving, this was last Monday, took an Uber or a Lyft to Herndon from DC. So the guy who was the Lyft driver, he had to, a phone call came in. So he had to put it on speaker because, he's driving. And so it was for some kind of government contract where they needed some more information about his experience. And it was due at 4 o'clock, and it was about 2:45. So this guy starts talking, and as he's talking, he says a name of a person that I know. Okay, and I'm thinking to myself, well, you know, there could be plenty of these same names. That's fairly common. And when he finally gets off, you know, then there's a couple of buzzwords. He says process improvement. He says organizational effectiveness. And I'm thinking, this is exactly what I'm looking for. So when he gets, long story short, gets off the phone, I interviewed him on the way to Herndon. So Wednesday, I'm going to offer him a job. And this guy, again, one, I did not have someone to support me in this work. So the idea of going to Fed is ops. And what you need to do is put in key words, what it is you're looking for. So I heard someone say they were project management. Always good for project managers. But put in those key words and see who's hiring. You know, who just got a contract or an award. And then you send in your credentials, make a call, you know, find out where these people kind of hang out, you know, what space they're in. So if it's, as an example, if you find that it's like a IT company, you know, look under LinkedIn to see who is the president of the company, who would be the hiring manager. Look at the groups that they're in. Look at the organizations that they belong to. And if you don't belong to those organizations, you need to, you know, join some of these organizations where your target market is currently, you know, spending time. The thing about this whole idea around branding yourself and being in the placing yourself in the way of opportunity is it goes all the way back to, again, deciding what it is you want to do and then looking for the places where this stuff is available. So, okay. Anyone else want to provide us with the talents or skills and opportunities, special sauce, and the position or gig that they would go at?
Is that describes us? You mean describe myself? Are those particular things?
Yeah, so what we were doing is we were looking at what are your special skills and abilities, and then what is it that separates you from everybody else that does the same thing. And then there was a question of what kind of job or gig would you go after if you were creating an in the meantime activity. So I don't know if you got this.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. So, all right. And Michelle, you had your hand up?
Actually, it's sort of a sidebar. When you were speaking about your love of shopping, I had a little story. When I like to be thrift. When I lost my job, that was pretty much where I was. But prior to that, I was a serious shopper. And I, like your sister, went to the retail establishment to sort of fill the gap. And on my interview, I had on a $5 pair of shoes, $6 pair of skirt, maybe a shirt that cost me $5 that I could have. Because I'm pretty good, my eye is good. But I had on a scarf that cost more than anything I had on. Mm-hmm. And I walked into Saks Fifth Avenue and requested information about a job, sat down with the personnel person, and she complimented me on my outfit. I almost burst out laughing. I wanted to tell her, you know, this scarf costs more than anything you got there, you know. But it was one of those things that I found, you know, I would possibly do a store or something like. I never thought about what you were saying, you know, trying to help ladies who practically have it in one place.
So, but the thing is, the work that we need to do, people are telling us about it all the time. People tell us what it is we need to do. So the next thing that, you know, so once you've decided what it is you want to do, then define and develop. So develop an expertise, which all of us have. I mean, we all have expertise. How many of you have a consulting card? Like a business card that says you're a consultant?
Well, I'm a business.
I do.
Okay. And what is what are you consulting?
I have a number of different things: strategy consulting, business development, international marketing, facilitation and training.
See, and so one of the in the meantime activities that I would suggest, you should have a business card that talks about voiceover.
I do.
Okay, so you do have a card, okay. But everybody here is a consultant. If you have 15 years of experience doing something, you can consult in that field. And so as an in the meantime activity, think about, starting a small consultancy, which might, it's something that gets you in the door. It's something that might allow you to do some project work while you're looking for the job or whatever it is you're looking for. An IT consultant, so there are, because if you meet someone and they ask you what you do, you want to give them that card, not one that says I'm looking for a job, but the card just says I'm doing the work. Okay, I've gotten business in a grocery store. Business is everywhere. And so the thing is, we just have to create the right mindset that puts us in that place, such that we can go after the business. Now, some people might say, why is this chicken up here? What's the point of the chicken? So when you think about chicken, what's the value of a chicken? What's the value from the standpoint of food on your table?
Protein.
Okay, protein. All right. So what is the value add? Is there any difference, I should say, between a chicken that you go to the market that's 50 cents less than the other? Like, let's say there's a Safeway chicken and there's a Tyson's chicken. And the expiration date is the same, the color is the same, the smell is the same. Is there any difference between the 50 cents, the one that's 50 cents more?
Well, it depends on what it says. If it's the one that has the antibiotics.
Yeah, but let's say it's all the same. But both are organic, no hormones, no antibiotics, but one's on sale.
Oh, well, I don't think there's no difference. They got the same date.
Yeah, because the value is added in the cooking, right?
Okay.
But what if I said that I love Kentucky Fried Chicken and I'm just driving by a Church's or Popeyes? Would you stop at Popeyes if you love KFC?
Well, I would.
Yeah, most people would not. Okay, and so the whole point of this is that the chicken here is a commodity, and it's based on, people buy it based on price. And so a lot of times if we haven't distinguished ourselves, like this poor chicken, then we're basically in the marketplace bidding on positions based on price. And we already know that younger people are going to be priced better, if not for no other reason other than benefits. So what we have to really work on is establishing ourselves as a brand. Now, the reason why someone that loves KFC is going to stop at KFC and not stop at Popeyes is because of the experience of KFC. What's the difference between KFC and Popeyes?
Unless, well, I mean,
Isn't it taste?
I might want baked. I don't know. Baked chicken, prefer baked chicken. Whichever one has the baked chicken.
Okay, so it might be how it's cooked. But the whole point is we have to learn how to distinguish ourselves and become that brand, because brands are sought after, selected, and purchased. And so as we start to build the brand, this is what's really important for people who are more mature in the workplace. The assumption is that because we're more mature, we don't know some of the things that millennials know. And that's true. But they don't know some of the things that we know. And that's where we should be marketing ourselves. It's based on that experience, right? It's based on that knowledge. So the question of how do we do it? LinkedIn is my favorite place to market a brand. How many of you, if you're 40 plus, I know you know LinkedIn. And you probably have great, right? They should have great profiles. So how many of you have a great profile on LinkedIn? Okay, excellent. Now, how many of you are doing something with your profile on LinkedIn?
Something like what?
Okay, so as an example, this is my profile, and these are some of like the blogs. So there's a blog, you have the opportunity to do blogs on LinkedIn. And if you're blogging, you always want to blog about your expertise, but never about you. Okay, so branding is never about you, and that's where people get kind of mixed up about it. It's always about your target. So it's always about adding value to your target market. Now, what I do here is I talk about, how, like this is lessons learned from Lucille Ball about your brand or something like that. I've written one on Lady Gaga and Dennis Rodman, and, different places. But the whole point is they can read it. It's entertaining. I always include a little video, 2 minutes or less. I'll always include a picture to bring, people in. I've written stuff about the pet rock, and so the whole point, which is my favorite pet. But the whole point is to pull people into your profile and to show that you can add value in the market that you are pursuing. So if it's training, what are some of the training techniques that you use? What's something, and it doesn't always have to be you writing. You can find an article that you think people will like. You can find, different pieces of information. But here's the point. It's the most inexpensive way to brand yourself online. And if we're not branding ourselves online, we're missing an opportunity. So how many of you interact with people through LinkedIn? Okay, great. So when I say interact, that means answering questions in the groups that you're in. How many of you are in more than 20 groups? Okay, so the groups are really important because that's where you find your affinity groups. So as an example, when I decided that I wanted to be a brand strategist for baby boomers, I looked on LinkedIn to find the groups, and I just put in the keyword baby boomers. I think there was like about 5 groups that popped up. And so I would send in value-added information to those groups. And that's how people get to know you, is through your interaction. I've received contracts off of LinkedIn. I've hired people off of LinkedIn. So it's really a valuable source. And if you're not really engaging with it, like at least once a week, then you're not getting the value out of LinkedIn. Now, if you're not, yes.
So you were saying with the affinity groups, there's the answering questions, which I've seen people do, and I haven't really taken a lot of time to do it, but when you answer the question, you try and teach them, not just answer the question. Is that what you're saying?
No, if I have knowledge about the question, then I'll provide a short answer.
Okay.
Or a reference. It does not necessarily
Okay,
mean
that's
something
a
from
reference.
right?
Yeah.
I'll send a reference. I'll put a link or something of that nature. And what that does is it just demonstrates that you have capabilities and expertise in that area.
Okay.
So it's really important that you're looking at the area that you want to find work, find a job, et cetera.
Okay, I get what you're saying.
All right. So the next thing that we want to think about is positioning yourself in the marketplace. And first, the idea of how many of you belong to organizations where your target market might be spending time. Okay, so only about 2 or 3. So let's give me some ideas again of the lady right here with the beautiful blue earrings. What, yes, turquoise. What area are you interested in working in?
Well, I'm ready to retire.
Okay.
I'm listening to all this, and I hear all this, and it sounds really interesting, but I don't have the energy level. And I would say something with a lower energy level or part-time. And I thought about becoming a travel and leisure thought partner. Are you familiar with the thought partner concept?
No.
Well, I work with a bunch of young kids, And they would say to me, and one person would write back and say, I can be your thought partner on this. And then one person asked me, do you need a thought partner to help you think through this? And I thought, no, it is time to retire. But, so that's a concept that's out there. And I had to Google it to find out what it meant, but that's what they're talking about. So I just came up with this crazy thing. I'm going to be a thought partner for travel and leisure and just travel around and meet people as I go. So I'm at a different position than people that are looking for jobs with the brand and stuff. So I really don't know what I'm doing, but I know I don't want to work really hard anymore.
Well, that's the first step. I mean, that's something that you know, right?
Right. Well, I can't work hard anymore. Not that I don't want to. I just don't. I've lost my energy.
But I love this whole idea about the thought partner.
Yeah.
And it's something that you can really develop. I mean,
It's just
something
a fun
long.
thing. People would remember me when I'm trying to pick up men and all this. And all the time. Would remember me,
So, do you have a website?
No, I have a full-time job right now. Keeps me busy.
So one of the things to think about is this whole idea of the thought partner. You might even think about getting some kind of caricature of yourself.
Yeah.
Like in a thought bubble.
I'm getting ready to go to Africa, so I'm going to try to get some funny pictures to put. I mean, I use it as a card. So when I go out and meet people, my adventures. But I do finance right now, and that's like, I could find some stuff to do in that, but it's like,
That's excellent. How about
I'll finish
others?
myself out.
What organizations do you belong to that you would find your target market?
I belong to 140 plus on the board. I'm in education, so I know a lot of people there. I belong to Singles on Sailboats. It's a big sailing club.
Wow, okay, that's neat.
And belong to Paul's List, for those of you who live in Montgomery County, if you haven't heard of it. It's just some guy. This is a very interesting story. He works for the federal government, and he just decided to start this list of advertised activities for singles in Montgomery County. It's huge. Now they're taking trips and everything. He's just an on-the-earth guy. There's no money involved or anything like that. Just
come
parties
around
and stuff.
Where's we make friends?
Yeah, that's a fundraiser.
Yeah, so that's what he did. And he's very popular. We'll say there's Paul,
But think about, so the thing to think about is, here we've got a couple of really neat, interesting ideas. And remember earlier I said, who's having joy in the job search? So when you start to engage your creativity around it, that's going to create some joy for you. It's very creative. If you are not mired down by the weight of trying to find a job, and you allow yourself to elevate into a creative space, it's going to do something very different for you. So let's think about identifying a list of 2 or 3 organizations where you can join, like an association, where you can volunteer your time. And when you volunteer your time, it should be doing something that demonstrates your skills and ability. So as an example, a project manager, if I join, let's say you are interested in working in the hospitality industry. So I would join an association of hospitality people or whatever, and I would volunteer on a project. Let's say most organizations are going to have an annual meeting or an annual conference. I would volunteer on the annual conference committee and basically do project management work. Now, I know that you mentioned, I overheard you talking about the budget component of it. I would specifically request to handle the budget, so that those are the kinds of things that would allow you to plug in the holes on your resume. Sometimes you can't get those holes plugged in based on work experience, but if you look at how do I volunteer and get the experience that I need, that's a way to plug in the holes. The other ways to kind of meet people, to position yourself, is not to attend a meetup, but actually start a meetup that's around your area of expertise. And so that gives you opportunities to practice what it is that you do, and that's also something that you can put on your resume, because you organize that effort, you develop the effort, and you actually demonstrate your skill set. Then this is a whole bunch of other items, like speaking opportunities. I saw, I can't remember her name, but I saw that there's a lady that was at the McLean that's doing a talk on nonprofits for 40 plus. It was on the little slides. Yeah. What was her name? Yeah. But the whole point is that you can find opportunities to speak. And if you have...
Like at 40 plus.
Like at 40
Like every
plus.
Monday. Just come see me if you'd like to talk at 40 plus.
But it's to share your specific expertise. You can also teach. So if you have a skill set that people are looking for, as an example, the lady with the purple, what is your area of expertise? I couldn't remember what you said earlier.
Executive assistant.
Okay. And so would your skill set be around organization, or what is your skill set?
I said organization, detail oriented. Focus on the skills.
Okay, so do you belong to any association?
No.
Okay, so one of the things that you could really easily join an association that would support your passion,
Yeah.
but then when you volunteer to demonstrate that skill set of being organized and detail oriented. And the reason why I say, volunteer and then demonstrate your skill set is that's where opportunity is. And you always have to kind of like stand in the way of opportunity. So if you're demonstrating your skill set, that's where people pick up. Well, you know what? I know that she does this specific piece really well because they know they've experienced it. And so if they've experienced what you do well, then when something comes up, even if it's not in their bailiwick, they might know someone who knows someone who's looking for somebody with your expertise. So that's volunteering, speaking opportunities, associations, internet radio. So that's another opportunity. If you have people on internet radio are always looking for someone to interview. And so if you have a skill set that you can talk about on internet radio, then look for those people that have internet radio shows and volunteer some of their work. So you said strategic planning and international
Marketing.
Now that's a topic that would be of interest, I think, on internet radio. So think about, finding someone that has a radio show that is about international discoveries or marketing or something of that nature. The other thing is you could teach at community colleges, and almost any kind of, look at the list of classes. So as an example, PR, public relations, something that you could teach. And the reason why I suggest community colleges is because everybody at a community college usually has a full-time job. They're looking to go back and improve their skills. When I taught at a community college, that's how I started working for AARP. It was because someone in the audience was there taking my class, and they recommended me to the training and development folks at AARP. And so it's just amazing how the networking and putting yourself in the right places can provide you with opportunities to do something different.
Excuse me. How do you qualify to teach at a community college? At present, I'm a substitute teacher, so I mean, they have.
So you're a substitute teacher?
Yeah, at present.
What kind of topics?
Well, I teach from pre-K 3 to 12th grade, different subjects.
So math skills?
No, I'm not a specific teacher, I'm just a substitute as needed, when the teachers are out.
So you have to go back to the question of what is it that you do well, and what do you really love to do? So if you look at the list of stuff that's on community college classes, flower arranging, there's all kinds of things. And so take a look at, just go through your community college and take a look at the topics and see if it's something that you can create a workshop around, or if it's something that you think you might be able to teach.
Okay.
Blogs, YouTube, so conferences, that's another place to find opportunities. Most people spend a lot of time at job fairs, but with job fairs, of course, it's something you have to do, but the concentration of people without jobs is very high. And so networking in that environment typically won't get you that kind of result. So go to conferences where people are working and well positioned, and look for ways to network at conferences. The other question is, do you own your name.com? And it's really important in this day and age to own your name.com. So like MarvaGoldsmith.com, I've owned for almost 20 years. And the reason why I say that is, especially in the transition and you're doing in the meantime activities, you might position yourself well by either having a hiremarva.com or marvagoldsmith.com, something where you can point people to. And if you point people to a website with your name on it, then it needs to kind of provide some idea about your personality. Now, I'm sorry, the gentleman in the front, the PR, this could be where you could even post some of your work that you've done in the past.
And while I'm looking at those organizations, I've set up a little website.
Oh, excellent. Okay, all right. And so is that linked to LinkedIn, your website? Okay, super. All right, but anyway, so this is just an example. This is what people are doing to now attract work. And you can see it's fairly creative, but it doesn't have to be this creative, because he's a graphic artist, so he's in a creative place. But think about how you might present yourself a little bit differently, such that when a potential employer or someone that's looking for someone with your expertise is looking for you, how would they find you? And then what does that one page tell them about you? That's what's really key.
How do you get that that page on the website? How do you get that?
So you would want to, like, if you're not able to do your own web page, like there's some that's fairly easy, like Wix.com, Squarespace.com. But if you cannot do that yourself, you can hire people to do it. There's a couple of websites that I use. One is called Upwork, and they'll put together a website for fairly inexpensively, but you have to provide them with all the content. The other thing that I'll mention is that Fiverr.com, are you familiar with Fiverr? Fiverr.com. You can find people to do like creative projects for you. I use Upwork to do editing for me, and they're fairly inexpensive. There's a lot of ways to really either grow a small business or an in the meantime activity for yourself without a lot of expense. And so you want to use some of these websites that can provide you with people that are just available to help with like graphic art, in fact, I think that several of like this book was done primarily through Upwork and Fiverr. So I had someone design all the little pictures. They did some of the editing. So everything that I do with these books and things of that nature, you can see some of the great artwork is online. And so in the meantime, you might want to think about, how do I grow a business online? Because people are looking for it all the
How do you
time.
spell that? Is it Fiverr?
It's Fiverr. The way it started was they would do anything for $5. And now it's not really $5 anymore, but they kept the name and just grew the concept. But you can, find different ways to market yourself, but not only just market yourself online, but kind of grow your presence online.
Could you spell it again?
FIVERR.com.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh. The other question is, if you Google your name, what comes up?
I'm afraid to do it.
You say you're afraid?
No, I think someone else should Google your name on a different computer. You shouldn't do it on your own computer.
Oh, okay.
Is that correct?
I don't know. I've never heard that. But,
Somebody else's computer.
but try it. Try it with two different computers. I don't know if they'll come up with two different things.
Okay.
But the point is, something should come up,
Yeah.
right? And if it's just, if you're really in a job search, like this is, when I'm in what I call a campaign, whatever it is that I'm doing is a campaign, I'll have like 20 pages of stuff that'll come up on me. And that's because I'm writing blogs on LinkedIn, I'm actively answering questions, I'm posting things to people, in associations, so it's always about adding value to that target market. And this is where people go to look for people. So the first thing I do is if I find someone on LinkedIn that qualifies for a position or has, applied for a position that I have open, first thing I do is Google them to see what comes up. If nothing comes up, then it's not that it's a demerit, but it just suggests to me that they're not active in the industry. And so I would be much more inclined to hire someone that is actively participating in the industry, that's adding value, that has distinguished themselves because they're doing something to make a difference. It may not even be in the industry. It might be that they're doing things in a nonprofit area, or they're expressing themselves through a hobby, or they're engaged in some kind of way. But it's really important to make sure that when you Google your name, something comes up. And what's the other thing that's funny, so these are some of the articles that are written. This one's coming up in Spanish. I had to have it translated to make sure it was, something that I would have approved of, right? All right.
I have a question.
Yes.
With respect to the, Googling your name, which I've done several times, one of the things that really bothers me, maybe I'm the only one that's bothered by this, and so that's entirely possible, but, it comes up with hits that have your personal information on there. And you're like, the last thing you want somebody to know is that you're not 35, which obviously nobody in this room is, but do you get my drift? I mean, it used to be that employers couldn't ask how old you were and then sort of filter you out that way.
Yeah.
Now, that law is pretty much useless, since all they have to do is go on the internet, and thanks to the aggregators who make money off of selling your personal information. And I looked into this, by the way. It's very, very difficult to stop them from putting it back on because it's public information. But apparently what triggers it is if you get a ticket or if you buy a house or you do anything that requires any sort of
Personal information.
personal information sharing with your government, it's usually the county.
So that's why it's important to put content out there. It's important for you to kind of, decide what people are going to look at.
So to basically drown it out.
That's right.
Yeah.
So the first 3 pages of information about me typically is something that I posted.
Right.
Yeah, and the other thing is if you're doing something that's noteworthy, write a press release, and provide a press release, and then, actually put it on the wire. And what happens is it'll go to, countless websites, but it needs to be value added. It needs to be something that your target audience will be interested in. And even if, let's say, I keep picking on project management because it's something that I know, but let's say that you are working with a nonprofit and you are volunteering to do project management for a nonprofit. And the story is really about the nonprofit. But in the story is information about how you're doing this project management work. So it's always really about, that entity. And by the way, this is the expertise that I am volunteering to provide.
And I have another question, sort of a follow-on. What about if you take a particular political position? Is that really risky?
A political position?
Yeah.
Online.
Online, yeah.
Yeah, especially Facebook, because, you know, with Facebook and some of these others, if you've noticed, like when you Google yourself, the first thing that's going to come up is if you have a Facebook page is going to come up, LinkedIn is going to come up. And the
Yeah.
reason for that is because of the number of hits that you get there.
Yeah.
So if you have a political position on something, and you're in the middle of a job search, you know, I would just suggest kind of waiting until, you know, after that has happened.
Wait to bash Trump.
Yeah, I think I would, because you just never know. I mean, you know, that's really a hot button issue.
Well, but then the other thing is, do I really want to work for somebody that
Yeah, that's the other thing that you
has
have
those
to.
views,
Mhm.
you know, that wouldn't respect my views?
Yeah.
And
But see, the assumption we're making is that, as an example, with one of my contracts, the person who heads up the organization is a high-ranking Republican. Treats me really well, and that does not mean that they are, you know, a Trump.
Right.
Right. So we can't make that
No,
assumption.
absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I understand.
But I think I personally, you know, when I try to keep stuff like that off my
Yeah, just being
Facebook page.
careful, yeah.
Yeah.
I think I take a stand on issues, not necessarily
Yeah. Take a
people.
stand on issues,
Yeah.
but not on personality.
Right.
Yeah. So the last thing I want to do though is to have you do a quick brand strategy. And if you turn it over on the other page, when we start to look at branding, you know, it's really important that, you know, after you've decided what it is you want to do, that you kind of put a stake in the ground and say, this is what I want to be known for. So, you know, you can have 3 or 4 brand strategies, but it should be one thing around one particular subject. So as an example, I decided that I wanted to be known as a coach for baby boomers that were in transition. So first thing that I did, and this is like strategy, I wrote a book. Now this was the first book, which is Rebranding Yourself After Age 50. And you'll notice I have my AARP card. So the whole point is to attract your target market. Now the reason why I started writing books, I went to a workshop given by Mark Victor Hansen, and he said everybody has at least one book in them. And so that really stuck with me. And so the whole point is this becomes a large business card. I never expect to be on the bestseller list, but what this is a business card. And so if you can write about something, this is the fastest way to distinguish yourself from everybody else. It does not have to be 200 pages. It could be, you know, I think 40 pages is considered a book. But it needs to be value add, and it needs to provide some kind of value to your target market. So after you do that, you might need to obtain some credentials.
Sorry, did you get it published? I mean,
Oh, yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
So the I self-published, and this is the second edition. The first one didn't have my picture on it because I was shy. And but I self-published, and because I knew someone at AARP, it just happened that they were looking for an image consultant to do a job fair, career fair, because they couldn't do jobs because in 2008 that was the recession. So the guy said, "Oh, I know an image consultant." He went on my website to see if I was still working, and so the book was on the website. And he AARP purchased 1,500 copies of my book, and I started speaking at their national conference. And so the value of a book, I mean, it's huge. And so then I spoke the next year, and I put the picture, and I put the AARP card on it. And this book is now almost 10 years old, but I'm still getting royalties off of Amazon because the title speaks to target market. And there's like 14 other contributors to this book that talks about how they go about finding work that makes their heart sing. The next piece is, once you decide what it is you want to do, is getting visibility. And so as I mentioned, LinkedIn is the best way to get viral visibility because there's, millions of people out there. So if you only have like 30 or 40 connections, you're not going to be able to do anything viral. So I would suggest building up your connections. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't know this person, I'm not going to, link in with them. But that's the whole point of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a networking tool. So unless they don't have a picture or they look suspicious, I would suggest if it's someone that has an interesting profile, link in with them. Because it's not necessarily that person, but it's who they know and who that person knows.
So when you say LinkedIn, like they come on my like they email me on the computer, I'm supposed to respond to them?
Yeah, absolutely. Identify, so the affinity groups, we talked about all that. But also find affinity websites. They're not necessarily LinkedIn, but websites that are in your affinity group. A lot of websites will be very specific, like for instance, the one that you mentioned earlier, something about sailing or whatever.
Singles on sailboat.
Yeah, singles on sailboat. Very specific, very niched, right? So find those niche websites where your target market is. The other thing is consistency. So the thing about branding is you can't just do things one time. You have to do it over and over and over and over again. And as you do things over and over and over again and you're adding value to your target market, you become known for whatever it is that you're adding value for. And as a result of that, people start to look for you. And so these are some articles, but I didn't ask for the article. People called me because they knew that was my niche. And so that's where you want to place yourself in that kind of space. Brand builders. So the other thing you want to think about is who can help you and who knows what you're doing. I know that 40 Plus definitely gets you in that space where you're thinking about people in your network that can help you, that have experienced the work that you do. But you want to be strategic about how you use brand builders. Bless you. And so once on this sheet, this is homework because we won't get to it. But you want to identify what is your leadership role, include the unique value proposition, so that's the special sauce. What actions are you committed to take to reach your goals? So you want to, at least within the course of the week, identify a couple of actions that you're willing to take in order to distinguish yourself from everybody else that's doing the same thing. Visibility, how can you gain visibility? So think about some of those things. Join an association, get active in LinkedIn, do an internet radio show, write a press release. I mean, there's all kinds of things. Look into teaching. So there's all kinds of things that you can do to get visibility for your leadership role. Yes, Michelle?
Just a quick question. You mentioned writing press release. When I think of writing press release, I think you're saying it's to distinguish. What are we talking about?
So when I write a press release, I go online, like I use 247pressreleases.com. And it's, they have a variety of different, amounts that you can use or types of press releases. One will release all over the internet. But they're more expensive. As you go up in expense, they tie into different things. Like one will tie into the Associated Press, and then others are just kind of like a blanket kind of thing. But use a press release in order to saturate the network or the internet with the stories that you want people to read about when they Google your name.
So will you do a press release for the speech site?
If I were looking for business, I might have. But one of the things that I did do was I posted on someone else's, a friend's website that has this kind of affinity group. But the brand builder is a very important thing for you to think about. And it's also important that there's key people that always know what you're doing, what you're up to. So that they can then, if they hear something, then they'll say, I think that, Madeline is doing that work. Let me put you in touch with her. The last thing, and this is the most important thing, the reason why I asked some questions at the beginning, like, what association, who belongs to associations, what are you doing with your LinkedIn profile? It's all about action. And if you take a little action every day toward, but it can't be something that feels like drudgery. It has to be the joyful component of the job search. Like, I really hope that you are going to pursue the voiceover work. That's perfect for someone that is mature, because voiceover, no one cares. No one cares how old you are. And so it's not something that you have to do. The other thing that I hope for you is that you will engage in an in the meantime activity. Because in the meantime, that's when things really start to percolate. Because you are really doing something that's not dependent on someone else. And so the minute you stop being dependent on someone else, like finding a job or someone, giving you this or that, it opens up a whole universe of opportunity. And the last thing I'll leave you with is a suggested book. When I first started, when I first moved to DC without a job, without a car, without an apartment, I read Deepak Chopra. Actually, I listened to it every day, and it was the 7 habits of spiritual law or something like that. But he talks about being in the gap. And what the gap is nothingness. It's that space where you're unsure. And for some people, it's fear. But when you can recognize that space is really opportunity, then it opens you up to everything. And so I wish that you'll live in the gap with joy, and that joy will bring you that prosperity that you're looking for.
Marva, thank you very much. On behalf of 40 Plus, we have a few mementos here for you that hopefully you'll think of us during the morning coffee. And
all right. I appreciate that greatly.
Great.